the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
There, he's wearing the girly number, and that dude, Nate Frazier, the true freshman, is going to be really good for a really long time at Georgia. And that was my biggest takeaway watching Georgia Clemson. Malachi Starks and the Georgia back end is loaded once again. Defense is still strong, but I mean, it took a while for them to break away from Clemson.
See,
I think Arian Smith looked a lot better.
Something
He
I
seems
think
like he might be a dude.
that football games are 4 quarters, sir. You're a big first quarter guy, and you get excited about big first quarters, but these games are 4 quarters. Georgia had 5 different guys with a 20-yard catch on Saturday. 3 different guys with a 30-yard catch. So and none of those included Dominic Lovett, who's one of the go-to guys in this offense. So London Humphreys had a 40-yard touchdown, like the transfer from Vanderbilt. Colby Young had a red zone touchdown. That should be his big body receiver. Should be one of his better skill sets this year. But I mean, Dylan Bell didn't play most of the second half with an injury. So I think Georgia's got a bunch of dudes. I tried to tell everybody, it's like no one's ever gonna have another Brock Bowers. I don't think we see tight ends like that. Obviously there could be a guy that's just as good, but I mean that's the definition of generational. Oscar Delp is a good player, and Lawson Lucky, I thought Lawson Lucky looked pretty good on Saturday. And then obviously Urosic, I think is how they pronounce his name on Saturday. I'm not sure if that's right, but the Stanford transfer, it's like he got the 3rd most snaps in the tight end room. So I mean, Georgia still has plenty of playmakers, but you're right. Obviously, Nate Frazier's the one that stole the day, really, because I mean that guy. When you see good running backs, it's like they just move a certain way. They're cutting stuff back, they're looking to take stuff to the house. I think you saw that with Nate Frazier, especially in his first game as a Bulldog. So I mean, I think that was one of the more encouraging signs. But obviously, the biggest storyline from Georgia a year ago, I mean, gave up 118 yards a game on the ground. 4 years in a row, Georgia was giving up less than 80 yards a game on the ground, give up 46 to Clemson. I thought the defensive performance was about as good as anything. Obviously, Cade Klubnik, I mean, I just don't even know what Cade Klubnik is at this point. Georgia going up against Georgia might not should be the barometer game for Cade Klubnik. He could, turn his season around, and it turns out he just faced the best defense in the country in the first game of the season. But I don't know. This Clemson offense just still looks pretty average. It's against a worse opponent, they might have some success. But I mean, Clemson's front 7 is definitely their strength. So that they were able to keep it close early. But it's it was kind of clear this offense just really doesn't have a chance to move the ball. I think they had 2 plays in Georgia territory in the whole first half, and then Georgia obviously broke it open in the second half. But yeah, it was pretty dominant.
Yeah, there were only 6 10-plus yard plays for Clemson in this one. Georgia had 16 10-plus yard plays. Georgia, after coming out of this game, they're 31st in the country in yards per attempt total on offense. I don't know. My thing with Georgia is I don't think the sky is falling on the offense. I think, like you said, whether it's Humphreys, whether it's Smith, whether it's Urosic, or whether it's Delp or Lawson or some of these backs out of the backfield, and we'll see what they look like too with Trevor Etienne when he gets back and how much he factors in the pass game as well. But now they have a Frazier thing where it's Frazier has to play and has to be a main cog in this running back room.
You know how Georgia loves to play 2 running backs.
Not 2. I'm saying you might have to play 3 or 4.
Etienne, I mean, Frazier's number 2. Branson Robinson had 7 for 12 yards. I'm not writing him off, but Frazier had the juice, you're saying. Etienne and Frazier as the 1-2, all of a sudden, what we thought Georgia was going to be coming into the season, it's what, does Georgia now have the best backfield in the SEC? Potentially. If Etienne is as advertised, Frazier looks like a future star. And you pair that with, I think, the best quarterback in college football, Carson Beck, at least one of them. And you saw Beck make multiple improvised plays with his legs in this game too. I think his athleticism is always being underrated.
Yeah, and Beck had a solid game in this one, but I just how much of this is an indictment on the portal for Dabo? Would the portal have solved this? Part of the issue is that we're now 4 years in a row, whether it's Streeter as OC, now Garrett Riley in year 2, the offense is still struggling. Like Cade Klubnik in year 3, he hasn't gotten better. DJU obviously didn't get better. He'll always have that Notre Dame game, which is one of the more baffling games of all time for quarterback play. I think when we look back on it, it's like what DJ looked like against Notre Dame in South Bend years ago.
As a true freshman.
Yeah, like he looked. Oh, they got. Do you remember it was like the Green Bay Packers thing, where they go from Favre to Aaron to Jordan Love? We were like, oh God, they did it again. They're doing this over and over again, and it's like the can't get away with it meme from Breaking Bad. And then quietly, it's over, and it's over again with Cade Klubnik, and that's something where the portal would have been helpful for Dabo. Is like, hey, Cade's not the guy. Maybe the 4-star kid, name starts with a V, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe ends up being the guy. Like, eventually you'll get some of these blue chip quarterbacks right. Like, he'll just stumble into a 4 or 5-star, being the right guy at your respective school. But, like, you could have gotten the portal. That could have been one where you're like, okay, we don't have it. We have the defense because Clemson has the defense. Like Clemson's defense is going to be one of the best in the country this year. You have Phil Maffa, who is one of the better running backs in the country. You have the pieces to still be 9-3, 10-2. But like, why are you not addressing this? Did you think like what about this Cade Klubnik aspect to it? Where you're like, you thought it was going to be different? Like, was this another misevaluation here from DJ to Klubnik? Because I mean, this is just going to be another really frustrating season if you're a Clemson fan, because you're like, okay, maybe year 2, Garrett Riley, Klubnik gets another full year in the offseason. Like, he's a super talented kid. He was the number 1 kid in his class. It was a big deal, but he's just not that guy. Like Cade Klubnik, if you remove the 5-star label from him, how do we look at him right now, Matt Green? Are we just, I mean, he's bad. Like, it's one of those where it's like, it's not good. His stat line in this game was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but I think the Georgia game is not the game to talk any sort of transfer portal stuff, because Georgia's a team that recruits way better than them out of high school. So
no, I'm saying, like, why aren't you in the game for like Dylan Gabriel? Why aren't you going after Will Howard? Why aren't you going after some of these other, you know what I mean? Like, you need to, like, because Ohio State did this. It's basically the Kyle McCord conversation, where they tried Kyle McCord, 5-star kid, didn't work for them, and they were like, okay, we can't do that again. You saw that last year with Klubnik. You need to go in the portal and get a Will Howard this year with the talent you have. Like, you need to address that.
I don't think Klubnik was terrible a year ago, though. Like, I felt like he showed like some sort of potential, and he's obviously athletic. Like, he has like a skill set, and it was his first year in Garrett Riley's offense. Obviously, Max Duggan, I'm pretty sure that was his first year, Garrett Riley's offense too, when they went to the national championship game. But, maybe, I'm sure that gave you some hope if you're Dabo and this Clemson staff. Like, a second year in this system. Garrett Riley, one of the best OCs in the country. I don't know. And I don't want to write them off just yet, because like they could still be one of the better teams in the ACC. It's just they're not as good as Georgia.
Well, the ACC is over, Matt Green. Let's just go ahead and call it. The ACC is done. Not only do they have an awful weekend as a whole, and we'll get into some of the other games that were just brutal for the ACC, and we'll see what Florida State looks like on Monday night against Boston College. But let's go to Miami, Florida, where Miami drubbed the Gators. Matt Green, what was your takeaway from Miami just walking into Gainesville and blowing out Florida? That was wild to sit there and watch.
This is this is the game you just knew there was going to be the most overreaction to nationally, because now Cam Ward has proven he can do it against the big boys in the SEC. And it's like, what, you're talking about Florida? Like the team that people think is going to win like 4 games this year? It's like, obviously we picked them to win. We picked Florida to win this game. So he proved us wrong. Part of us, we don't trust Miami. We didn't know what to expect. The Swamp, one of the toughest places to play in college football. So gladly eat crow. I was wrong. But Cam Ward early he was
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.